All right, welcome everyone to the Even Deeper podcast. My name is Joey. This is Owen, your other co-host, and this is the first episode. We're going to kind of explain the reasoning behind this podcast, why we started it, what the name means, and we're going to go through our testimonies. So, Owen, if you want to kind of explain what the purpose is, go right ahead.
Yeah, so excited for you guys to be listening. So, right off the bat, just with opening the word, our title, Even Deeper, is based off Psalm 42:7. Deep calls to deep at the roar of your waterfalls. All your breakers and your waves have gone over me. So, the big part in this verse that we really wanted to focus on was deep calls to deep. And it kind of, according to Blue Letter Bible, talks about spiritual longing. And so, basically, the idea behind this podcast is for it to be question-based so that we can have people that are struggling with questions, struggling to ask questions because they might be scary to ask, and just, having biblical context for the answers, having the answers based off knowledge and experience from the guests and of Joey and I. And sometimes those questions can just consume you. They can be so constant that they can take over what's most important, which is your relationship with the Lord. And it consumes all your thoughts. And sometimes they're so hard to answer, especially if you're not super deep in your faith. So, basically the idea just came from having questions that we don't know the answers to and just reaching out to people and having them come on the podcast to help answer questions that you guys might have as well. So I'm going to have Joey tell you guys a little about himself, and
Okay, yeah, so I'm going to explain my testimony, but also we do want to point out we do have opinions on a lot of these topics that we're going to be talking about. As we have these conversations all the time just by ourselves or with our friends about these like complicated topics. So we do have our own opinions, but we're going to be open to other people's opinions too. And we're going to defend our beliefs if we truly believe that that we're in the right, but we're open to hearing other people's takes anyway. So we just want to make that clear because we're not going to agree with everything that our guests say, and me and Owen don't even agree on everything ourselves. So I'd say that's an important thing to keep in mind too. But I just want to explain my testimony first, and then Owen will explain his. Because everyone has a testimony, whether it's extreme or not, whether you think it's extreme or not. Everyone has a testimony, and mine doesn't seem that extreme, but in my own mind, in my own physicality, it did feel pretty crazy. So I grew up in the church. I went to church probably every week from the time I was maybe 5 or 6 years old, and I don't think I missed a single Sunday until I was like 17 or 18 years old. And even when I was that age, I still went every week. And I was a good kid growing up. I am generally a rule follower instead of a rule breaker, so I didn't really break the rules until I got to high school, and I was about 14 or 15 years old. Probably just hung around with the wrong crowd and gave into a lot of like high school temptations, like drinking and smoking and stuff. So I got into a lot of that, and I would still go to church every week, and I thought that I had my belief in God. And I definitely did still have belief in God. I believed that he was real. But the way that I like to frame it is that I believed in God, but I didn't love him. And I definitely did not love him with my actions. So I would party on Saturday night, and then I would go to church on Sunday morning. And that was a long stretch. That was 2 or 3 years maybe. And that was as I was like truly developing and sort of becoming an adult. And eventually, it ended up kind of getting to a breaking point where I had to make that decision where I was going to either go all in with this life that I was enjoying at the time. I wasn't truly enjoying it. On the surface, it looked like I was, but deep down, I was pretty unsatisfied with life. Or I was going to turn around and actually change my habits, become healthy, in all ways, physically, spiritually, emotionally. And luckily, I made the right decision there. That was back in around 2022. So I was 19 when I kind of turned my life around. and cut out almost all the negative things in my life. So that was basically it. I got baptized in November of 2023. And ever since then, I've just been trying to live by God's plan and live by my instincts and what I think God is telling me to do. And that actually led me down into Tampa because I was living up in New Hampshire, working with my dad, living a very comfortable life. And I felt like God was calling me to get out of that comfortable life and do something pretty extreme and move down across the country where I didn't know anyone. And ever since I've been down here, I've been extremely blessed with like my friendships and just situations, so many situations that I'm sure we're going to talk about quite a bit on this podcast. But that's essentially my testimony. That's a brief overview. There's a lot of more details in there, but that's generally it. So, Owen, if you want to explain yours, that'd be great.
Yeah, so mine's pretty different from Joey's, but at the same time, pretty similar. And just want to point out that like testimonies don't have to be crazy. They can just be random things that happen overnight, and it's just crazy how God works, and it's different in everyone's life. So never feel bad about sharing your testimony because it doesn't seem crazy enough to be shared. So mine kind of all started just I have family from all over the world, and just their faith coming from different places, looking back now, is just so cool. And grew up in a very God-fearing household, so amazing, just people to look up to, my parents and just like grandparents and everyone around me. So when I was 7, on the way to a Chicago Fire soccer game, if there's any soccer fans listening, I gave my life to Christ in the car. And, I did not understand what that meant. Even though I had, been in church, I was still only 7 years old. I didn't truly understand what that meant. And kind of grew in my faith throughout middle school. And so by the time I was 13, I got baptized. And that was still just, my life was going good. And after that was kind of when everything started happening. I was very close to my grandparents growing up. They lived down the street from me. And one time coming back from Florida from a vacation, very long story short, I had found my grandpa passed away by myself. And so it was a very traumatic thing to experience at that age. And it was a huge start to my journey with the Lord, which seemed like it was the end at the time. It was a huge start. So when that happened, just immediately, got frustrated. Didn't really not believe there was a God, but just did not think that he saw me, he loved me, anything like that. So I just turned from him and just never wanted anything to do with him. Never opened my Bible for a few years. Just did not want to go to church. I completely despised church because it didn't feel real, and just didn't have connections, didn't have community that helps push me. So it was like, what was the point? I didn't really understand it, and I didn't know how to get further in my faith if I even wanted to. So went through high school just living morally a good life, I guess. I was never a rule breaker either, kind of like Joey said, but just spiritually awful life. And after high school, or during high school, my brother went through a lot, and through this, the Lord really spoke to me. And it was kind of the first time I had ever felt the Lord really speak to me through someone else, and just even at all. And it was just crazy. And so I started to kind of question just everything, and question if what I went through was actually bad or if it was, good. And I didn't know. So I was just very curious on faith and everything like that. And my brother came down to Florida, and a lot stemmed from that, with connections that now me and my family have with some awesome people. And I was looking at colleges near my brother, and my brother recommended University of Tampa. I knew nothing about it, and did a tour, applied, and long story short, got accepted. I was super excited, but honestly never really knew why I was so drawn to Tampa. And it's so cool looking back because now I completely understand. So by the time I came down to Tampa, everything was good. I was in a relationship at the time, and everything seemed like it was going uphill, and I was still not really in my faith at all. I had been going to church before this almost every Sunday ever since I grew up. But so by the time I came here, by the time my parents left to go back home from Illinois, where I was originally from, I was left alone to figure out, the journey of how to find my own faith and just figure out life in general. So I had 2 roommates at the time, which were a huge part in my testimony as well. And I'm grateful to have those experiences, because if I didn't have that, then I don't know where I would be. But I was just very curious, and I was lost, and I didn't know what to do. And so there was a point in time for months I didn't go to church. And then I tried out a church. It was good, but I just didn't really feel like the Lord's presence was really there. And then out of nowhere, my mom found this advertisement on Facebook for a church nearby. So we checked it out, and immediately I'd never felt that way walking into a church. And immediately after the service, the campus pastor was right behind me, which was crazy. And so I started talking to him and got connected right away. And ever since then, I've been going every single Sunday, and only missed a few since then. So that's kind of where all the process started of me learning more about faith and truly understanding what it means to have a relationship with the Lord. So I was still searching, and it seemed like everything was going up, and then everything started going down again. And as I was getting more curious about faith, everything I thought I had was going away, because looking back, it was not what the Lord wanted me to have. So I started getting more connected. I joined a group, which I had never done before. I would never go out of my way to do that beforehand. And so I joined, and this amazing man named Ryan Vella, who hopefully we can have on the podcast in the future. The Lord really worked through him ultimately to save my life. And I am forever grateful for how the Lord used him, and just for him being obedient to the Lord, and how it impacted me and so many others in the church. So that was the start of me truly understanding what love felt like from the Lord, and just seeing community, seeing the power of faith and obedience and discipline. And so then everything started going up a little bit, and then everything started going down again. And as I was trying to figure out how to navigate this life, I was going down a really bad hole, and everything just got worse and worse and worse, eventually to the point where I was at rock bottom, and I had no idea what to do. And one night I was on Bayshore in Tampa here, and I just got on my knees, started crying, and I think the only words I said were, "Help me, Lord. I don't know what to do." And the next day was my first day of group, when this amazing thing happened with my leader, Ryan. And it was this amazing spiritual encounter that I'd never had, and I'd never felt this way before. And I felt like the Lord was literally speaking to me, and it changed my life. And I always get chills just even thinking about that. And that's really where everything kind of locked in. I kind of knew I had to lock in with the Lord. And so a few weeks later, I rededicated my life. And ever since then, that was 2 years ago now, or about to be 2 years in October. And ever since then, I've been on the process of sanctification and just walking with the Lord, and truly being a disciple and a follower of Christ, and going about that. So that's just a little bit about me. And obviously there's so much more detail in that. I could go on for about 3 hours with what the Lord has done in my life. But the other amazing thing about testimonies is that they never end, and that every single day that you live, it just continues to add on. And it's amazing how the Lord works. So that's a little about me. And I'll give it back to Joey on kind of more about how this podcast is going to work.
Yeah, so our plan with it is to do 1 episode a week, at least for now. If we see that it's sustainable to do more than that, we will. But at least for now, we're going to do 1 episode every week. We're going to be uploading at Monday, 7 a.m. So great start to your week. If you're going in, driving into work, you can put this on. And we are going to be switching bi-weekly between a guest and just us. And that's also for now. all of this stuff is subject to change, but we're going to do that for now. So obviously this one is with us alone, and then after that it's going to be with someone else, with a guest. So that's basically going to be it. And again, we just want to emphasize that we are really trying to learn here and help you guys learn, because again, we have our own opinions, but we do not want to come into this as teachers. We want to be coming into this as learners. Therefore, if you guys have any questions, definitely let us know. You can shoot us a DM on Instagram. I'll put all the links to everything like in the description and stuff, but you can comment, you can basically put the questions anywhere and we'll see them, and we'll try to answer the questions that you guys have. So that's basically our plan with it. You have any closing thoughts?
Yeah, just kind of reiterating on what Joey said. We want this to be a big focus on you guys. So any questions you have, we have an email set up that you can send questions through, and as well as Instagram, you can just shoot us a DM. And then eventually, once our YouTube is up and running, if you have any that you want to just throw in the chat there. Each guest that we have on is going to be passionate and knowledgeable on the topic at hand. So whatever we feel like is the most prominent topic that week is what we're going to film the podcast on. So whether that's prayer, whether it's Catholicism versus Christianity in terms of beliefs and that type of thing, that's what it's going to be. And so we want you guys to really just send in questions that you have, and we'll keep them anonymous unless you guys want us to shout you out. But yeah, we just want to encourage you guys to be a big part of this as well so that we can help you guys. And other than that, I think Joey touched on everything. So I just want to thank you guys for listening to this first episode, and otherwise we'll see you next Monday. See ya.